There's one thing that makes me come alive when you're by my side. Forget everything together with me when that weary table rolls. Play that movie, I want you to smile. Shut out all the worries, dream away for a while. The look you had in your eyes back then, we'll pretend it's 85 again. Play the tape, make me feel like I'm home. Take me back again to see the look of that crow. The power of love is back on the screen, and we'll have 85 again. Play that movie, I want you to smile. Shut out all the worries, dream away for a while. The look you had in your eyes back then, we'll pretend it's 85 again. Play the tape, make me feel like I'm home. Take me back again to see the look of that crow. The power of love is back on the screen, and we'll have 85 again.
Ugh, I have to do laundry when I get home. I have to lug all my clothes over to the washing machine. Then I get to put them in the dryer. And accidentally shrink my cashmere sweater again.
Motorcycles make everything exciting.
Okey-dokey. Hello. It's time to start class today. Good morning. Hi. This is, I put it that way. This is ENGL 386, the graphic novel class, and I am Zach Whalen, and I'm the professor. So, good morning, and thanks for watching. Sorry about the ad there. I finally got my Spotify player. Well, I didn't actually get the web player working, but I got the, I just downloaded the desktop client, and when I usually play Spotify on this computer, I play it through the web, and so my ad blocker blocks out all the ads. So now that I'm using this, standalone one, it includes the ads again, so that's sort of awkward. But I guess I could plan ahead a little better and maybe queue up a song that is the same length as the countdown timer that I'm using, so that you don't run out. Because it just went through. I mean, I assume you didn't want to hear a Geico ad and Taco Bell and a podcast ad. So anyway, here I am this morning. Looks like my audio video sync is pretty far off, but that should be okay because I'm not going to be on screen for most of the time today. I just wanted to take a few minutes at the outset of class here to talk about the annotated bibliography assignment, and then the rest of it will be talking about letting you see each other's presentations and respond to them. So I hope you all are doing okay this morning and coming online. Looks like only 4 viewers, but sometimes that's out of date. I see at least 4 people online in Discord, so that's probably more than 4. So the idea, the basic agenda today is, after I say a few words about the annotated bibliography assignment, then I'm going to start playing the presentations. I have them all queued up and they all work. I will have to do a little bit of work with one of them, but not much, and it's all fine, and they all look good. So I think you've all done a great job in terms of what I asked you to do for the assignment, so thanks. My plan is to play each video and then give you a couple minutes to chat about it. So as you are watching another group's presentation, if you think of a question, just type it in the live stream chat and it'll show up as as part of the stream. Although I noticed it's not actually loading above me. It should be. I can see you all chatting in Discord, but it's not actually loading in that widget there, which is unusual but not important right now. So but yeah, so if you have questions for each other, please come up with a question for each other, post it in the chat, and then you can talk about it even during the presentation or in the few minutes after. I think we should have plenty of time to get through all 5 presentations. They're all about 7 minutes long, obviously. I'm going to get right into it, and then we'll be able to chat. I'm going to be pulling them up here, over here. Yeah, where am I? Over there. I'm going to be pulling them up over there, and so but I'll just hide my video while you all are presenting, because you don't need to see me watching things. That makes sense. Okay, so a few words about the annotated bibliography, and I saw a question just now, Aaron. Yeah, what is your question? Actually, let me pull it up here on this screen so I can see both of them. I just saw that it came up as a question. Okay, so Aaron, I can reply to you in Discord, but basically it was if you saw the announcement I sent last night, it was just that I had the wrong group sets attached to each of the assignments, to the assignment submission. So Canvas views it as a group assignment, but it's using the wrong groups to determine who belongs to what. So don't worry about it. It's all good. I see them all. They're all in. Everybody's fine as far as submitting it, both for the presentation and for the comic itself. And really, the comic itself assignment is kind of redundant anyway, because I know where all your comics are. It's just a, for future reference kind of thing anyway. So don't worry about that one at all. But it's fine, and the presentation is fine as well. So I know which groups everyone's in, and I know which group you're actually in, and I know how to find all your comics. So let's just leave that one as the way it is. Okay, let's talk about the annotated bibliography assignment. I made a video about it. The video ended up being kind of long, unfortunately, so it's there. And what I did is I went through and just added timestamps for it. I had it up here a second ago, but you can see it here. I added timestamps for some of the different topics that I cover in the video. The first part of it is general Zotero use, and honestly, you could get that from other places and probably better than what I did there, just in terms of what is Zotero, how do you use it to collect citations, how do you create a bibliography with Zotero. Our library has a page about this. Zotero itself has tutorials, documentation. They have videos, I think, on YouTube even. It does take a little bit of getting used to. It's got a lot of things built into it, but it saves you a ton of time once you get used to it. Like, once you're used to using Zotero for your research workflow, it can save you a tremendous amount of time, and I really recommend it just in general. For us, what we're doing is a little different. We're taking Zotero, but we're adding on top of it a group aspect or a collaborative aspect. And what we are doing, and I keep saying we because this is me and you, we are creating a single annotated bibliography of about 100 or so items. Each of you is responsible for adding 5 items to our annotated bibliography. Those should be items that are related to comic studies in some way, especially if you can find things about the comics that we have read in this class, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, that's probably what I'd recommend starting with, but if you find other things that are relevant to comics at all, those are valid for our annotated bibliography. And add them, annotate them, and turn that in. That's the basic workflow of the assignment. And I talk about some of the nuts and bolts here, but not a whole lot about the kind of purpose of the assignment. So let me say a bit about the purpose of the assignment. This is meant to be kind of the springboard to the final. So the final is a research-oriented essay about comics. Especially, I do want you to write it about something that addresses one of the comics that we've studied this semester. So I'm going to tweak a little bit of that assignment description, but that's the basic idea. Whenever students go into doing literary kind of research-focused analysis of comics, sometimes they will have the impression going in that there is not existing scholarship about this, that this is a brand new field. No, surely no one's ever written a book or an essay or a journal article or a book chapter about a comic book. But in fact, they have. Comic studies is a relatively young field. It is a field that is sort of perpetually young. It kind of keeps reinventing itself, but it does exist, and you can find scholarly writing about most, if not all, of the books we've read this semester. I have not looked for all of them. I think probably all of them have something that you could find where a scholar has written a detailed analysis or interpretation of these works. That's the kind of thing you'll be looking for, but in the annotated bibliography, you can also find things that are related or similar, and you can use those as well. Anyway, the point is to build this annotated bibliography first, so that when you sit down to try to figure out your research question and your analysis that you're going to be writing for the final paper, you've got this big library of things that your peers have helped construct, and it's hopefully a useful resource, and that's the idea. So it is due the week after Thanksgiving break, which is next week, so it's due in a couple weeks. I can probably, honestly, as I was kind of editing this video, I realized I was really kind of long-winded about some of these explanations. I feel like I could make this a lot shorter, so I might try to do that. Your basic idea is go find 5 things, read them, write a short description of those things, and then add that to our group library. So those are your basic 3 steps for that. It's something that you can do fairly quickly if you find some good sources, but if you get kind of bogged down in Zotero, it can be a little bit of a drag. So that's why I wanted to make this video that you can refer to, or I can send to you if you get stuck on different parts of it, especially the bit about adding things to our library. There's this, honestly, as good as Zotero is, there isn't a great kind of interface for that action whenever you add move something from your library to the group library. It's just a drag and drop kind of thing, and you have to kind of know what to drag and where to drop it. It doesn't do a great job of cueing you to that, so that's why I wanted to show it in this video. But anyway, hopefully that's helpful. Take a look at that, the assignment description certainly, and this video, again, especially the kind of second half of it, is probably going to be more helpful for you as far as figuring out what we're doing for this assignment. Okay, so for the videos, I'm going to just start playing them, and what I will do is, I'll hide myself once it gets started, and I do have headphones so I can listen to it this time, and I will invite you to, of course, watch your peers' presentations, and if you have questions, if you have comments, just put them in the chat while they're presenting, and then those of you who are the presenters, of course, you can interact in the chat as well and answer those questions or thank people for their nice comments if they have them. Okay, so I'm just going to go in the order that I have them in my folder here. It's nothing really significant about that. It's just what I have. So it looks like this is going to be, is this the Avengers? This is the Avengers, right? Atlas. So that's, yeah, Sed, Jess, and Sydney. I have you all queued up first. Hope that's all right. So let me pull it up here on my thingy so you can actually see it. Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna have to, between these, I'm gonna have to kind of play with the size. For some reason, they came through at different resolutions, which doesn't matter, but it's kind of curious to me. Okay, let me close a couple things. Yeah, this looked better when I did it before, but that's okay. Maybe if I do, I don't want to cut you guys off, but I will hide myself. Okay, so I think that's, check the volume on these things. Okay, make sure this comes through. Okay, so let me switch my Discord over so I can chat as well. Okay, here we go, hopefully.
Hello, we are presenting on our comic Atlas. It was written by me, Jessica Morin, produced by Sydney Dahl, and all illustrations and drawings were done by Cedric Unsaw. As you can see on the screen, we have the symbol for our comic. It is the name Atlas. The L has been transformed into Hermes' staff. We chose the color gold to kind of show the importance and the greatness of Hermes and what you will see later on his gang represents. The lettering itself is done in a more graffiti style to show the dystopian aspect. So for division of labor, Cedric Ansah chose to be the artist. He had shown us some of his drawings beforehand, and because neither the rest of us could really draw, it was the best option, obviously. I chose to be the writer because I'm an English major as well as Sydney, but it just seemed best for division that I should be the one to write the script and kind of get the layout ready out into words before Cedric drew them out. And Sydney Dahl chose to be the web manager and team leader, so she has been the one publishing it onto the internet. And for some themes and plot, so it is set in post-apocalyptic Nashville, where the world is in ruins and a hero is in need. And everything is based off of a new religion. It's not Catholicism, Christianity, Buddhism, or anything like that. It's actually based off of the Percy Jackson books because they're more of like a Bible. And there are clans or gangs which are based off of major Greek gods and goddesses, as we saw with the Hermes symbol for our main hero. And so it's really actually interesting, and that's why the atlas has been chosen as our thing, because it's a big map of Nashville. So our main character, their name is Nobody. They are non-binary, and they have been chosen whether by themselves or by their clan. It's not really sure in the comic, but they have to find a hero who is supposed to be able to save everyone. And they are only armed with Percy Jackson and a torn page of an atlas, where they will be hopping between islands to try and get to the Parthenon in Nashville, where the hero is said to be residing. And so that is where it starts off. She's leaving her island. They are leaving their island and going off on an adventure.
Now, the creative working process, like we said before, since there are three of us, we're really working for it to be a more collaborative thing. So the first thing that we did is that we created a large Google Doc, and it's the first 13 pages of it were just all of us at the same time trying to work out the plots and the themes, so that way everyone got a say in what we wanted to do for the entire project. And we really wanted to do that just so it felt like a cohesive unit, and not that we were forcing all of this onto one person to bear the burden of the entire thing, like Atlas with the sky on his shoulders. And the specific steps of the creative working process is that the first step is that in the Google Docs, Jess writes down the action and the script and about how many amount of panels it should be, with how big the shape, if they are important. And the second step is that Zed draws out a rough draft of those panels and sends it to me and her for approval on the go-ahead to continue with the line arts. Both of these, again, show how much talking to each other that we do and how important it is that it is a collaborative work. And then for the third step, once me and Jess have spoken about if anything needs to be tweaked or changed, Zed then creates the final draft and once again sends it to us for the group. And then I will take the final pages once they're on the Google Docs and put them to the Webcomics website, which shares them with everyone in our class and everyone who goes onto the website to see the final draft of it. Again, all four of these steps have a bunch of us talking to one another and really being a collaborative progress. So it isn't just one person's comic, it is the whole of our comic.
As for how we designed the comic, the first chapter was sort of necessary to like set up the world building and, give us a glimpse of what's to come. So we made the entire first chapter in full color, which was a pretty neat challenge because I'd actually not done that before. And the rest of the comic, as it goes on, it gets a lot more serious. So I switched back to my wheelhouse of drawing the comic in grayscale. All the screen tones are gray and stuff like that. To give off the seriousness of the situation as you see on the right. And as the story approaches its climax, I do double down on a lot more like harsh blacks or like whites to get that sense off. And as for the design choice for nobody depicted in the comic, I did not show their face for the majority of it, with the exception of one panel. And when it comes to the themes of the story, the important thing to sort of hammer in at the end was just to show how, anybody could have been in their place and how we can all be bit players in a world a lot bigger than us, but, we can still be in the world. So I made the decision to not show nobody's face because, as I just said earlier, it could have been anyone. And I thought that was a really important thing to do.
And publishing the comic was a lot more steps than I had originally anticipated. Like we talked about earlier about said creating the pages in itself and then posting them onto the Google Docs. I would then take them from the Google Docs, have to save them in a Word document, and then save them as a picture. And then I would go onto the Mary Washington Comics website and re-upload them with the title, the descriptions, the character tags. And I did this making sure that it was all right because I wanted our audience to like it, and our audience in this is the others in this class. If this was posted on another place such as Instagram, we could have gotten a larger audience. However, with Instagram, it would have been more suited for a smaller page size and maybe one panel at a time, which we had talked about before. And after going over the pros and cons of that, we decided that the full page spread with the website hosting would have been a much better choice.
For our division of labor,
You couldn't hear my audio that whole time. It's fine. I was just saying, great job, and I'm getting ready to start the next one. Avengers, make sure, check, obviously people are chatting and asking you some questions in Discord, and so make sure you interact with them that way. I'm going to keep trying to get the chat to show up here above me, but it's not super important. The main thing is the presentation, so I'm going to let that play, and then I'll be back in a moment.
For our division of labor, our group had 4 people, so we each took on a role. As team leader, I, Claire, would text in our group chat to make sure that everything was being done on time. I would make sure that the script was uploaded 2 days before the comic. This was so that our artist would have time to draw the comic before it was due. I would also send out a reminder the day before our comic was due as well. As writer, Caitlin would write the script for the comic as well as complete the lettering as soon as the comic was drawn. An example of the type of text I would send and the scripts that Caitlin would write can be seen on this side. Barbara was the main artist of our group, but since the artist for our comic is such a big role, Devin would help Barbara with creating the drawings when needed. On the left side of the screen, there is an example of Barbara's art style and Caitlin's lettering. In addition to helping Barbara with the art, Devin was also our group's web manager. As a group, we decided to publish our comic on Instagram, so after each panel was completed, Devin would upload the finished page onto our Instagram account. On the right is a screenshot of our Instagram account of our page 1 uploading after Devin posted it to our Instagram page.
Making our comic, The Hollows Halloween, begins with Caitlin writing the story. She would provide us with the script for each panel. Her inspiration came from thinking about how candy contraptions could backfire on Halloween and the funny situations that would ensue. Afterwards, Devin and I would look over the script and determine if each panel was doable, and then give Caitlin any feedback for the changes we needed. Claire would give updates throughout the process and make sure everything was being done on time and all of the deadlines were being met. Then Devin and I would plan for how we would execute drawing the comic. Usually I would draw the major figures like the Hollows, Jackal the cat, the trick-or-treaters, and so forth. Devin would then add the background and the majority of features like the countdown pumpkin, the candy slide, the calendar, and the candy line. After we had finished the drawings, Devin would then add comic bubbles, and the comic would then be sent to Caitlin to do the lettering. After Caitlin finished with the lettering, the final panels would be uploaded to our shared Google Drive, and then Devin would upload the comic to our Instagram page. For instance, in Comic 1, Panel 3, using Caitlin's script, I drew the Hollows and Frankenstein, then Devin added the background and the comic bubble, and Caitlin added the lettering.
Comic theme. The Hollows Halloween is the Halloween theme comic. The comic has Halloween decorations, costumes, and lots of candy. The comic is also themed around COVID-19 and how it has impacted the way Halloween was traditionally celebrated. The characters wear masks and social distance themselves from the trick-or-treaters. The Hollows have even put up a Halloween decoration that is a tombstone that has "Wear Your Mask" engraved on it, combining both the Halloween theme and the COVID reminder. The comic's plot. The Hollows Halloween focuses around Andrew, Maisie, and Jackal Hollow. Andrew and Maisie love Halloween, however their cat Jackal does not. But he does love candy. The Hollows are trying to get ready for Halloween and trying to come up with a safe way to hand out candy while maintaining social distancing. However, most of their contraptions backfire, and they have to think of a new invention to hand out the candy safely, without harming any of the trick-or-treaters or themselves.
As stated previously, our group decided to put our comic on Instagram. We decided on this because we liked the format of this when we did the Instagram assignment. We liked the benefit of the reader swiping through the comic and not being able to see the entire story all at once. This gave our comic an element of surprise. Also, because of the way we did the art in the background, we thought it was more beneficial to have the same size panels throughout our story. Having the same size panels was beneficial to our comic because the pace of the comic stayed relatively the same throughout. When putting our comic on Instagram, it was a little hard to publicize it to a wide audience because it is a fairly new account and we do not have a large following. Since I was in charge of publicizing our comic and I knew that relative hashtags would be the best way for others to see, I Googled some of the most popular hashtags that related to our theme of Halloween, COVID-19, and comics. We also wanted to make sure the first page of art in our comic was visually appealing and the captions were attention-grabbing. To continue with the topic of publicizing our comic, when our group thought about who our intended audience was, we came to the conclusion that our audience would be somewhat broad. We intended our audience to be relatable because of all the things going on right now with the pandemic, and the fact that so many of us are attempting to live our lives as normal as possible, while also being safe and keeping others safe. When we posted our comic, it was around the time of Halloween, so we wanted an audience of those that like Halloween and comedy and those that can relate to adjusting to the pandemic. As I stated previously, it was difficult to get a large audience, but those that did like our comics found us through our hashtags about Halloween and COVID and comics.
go. I think I have the audio active now. So great job. Thanks for putting that together. And as I was saying in Discord just now, I think it's really cool how both of you articulated different reasons for the choice of platform that you made. And I think that's great. I mean, that's what I was hoping for. So good work there. Excellent. So thank you, the Justice League. Hallow's Halloween. Yeah. And certainly I was somewhat inspired by your comic, made a catapult, and thankfully no one was injured in my experience with the catapult, and looking forward to kind of amping that up even more next year. Okay, next up is going to be Penny and Poe, the Teen Titans presentation. So let me see if I can get this queued up here and make sure it's the right size. I don't know why they come through at different resolutions, but they do. So let me adjust this a bit, and let me see if I can move that up a little bit. That's make that fit a little bit. I think that's good enough. Okay, and I'm going to hide myself and get this started.
This is the Teen Titans presentation on our graphic novel comic called Penny and Poe. Penny is the pumpkin with the smile and his tongue sticking out of his mouth, while Poe is the one with the frown on his face. All of the members included are listed below, and we're going to take you through our creative process of how we came up with Penny and Poe and all of the responsibilities that each one of us held when it came to creating this comic. In Penny and Poe, the plot is it's a Halloween-themed comic starring the two pumpkins, Penny, who's very optimistic, and Poe, who's very pessimistic. They talk about COVID-19 and how no one's following the guidelines. They end up getting taken out of their pumpkin patch and displayed on someone's porch for Halloween. And the theme is about kindness and optimism, displaying it even when things seem to be at their worst, while also following a reoccurring theme of COVID-19 guidelines and making sure to wear a mask at all times. The division of labor, starting with the team leader. The responsibilities included were making decisions, delegating tasks, making sure to remind the group of any deadlines, while also making sure to submit those assignments on Canvas, scheduling any meetings when necessary, and making sure to let the group know when assignments needed to be begun. Basically, the main responsibility was making sure to communicate with the group on a consistent basis, while also letting them know that if they needed any help, that they were there to help them. Division of labor, artist. The main responsibility for the artist included actually drawing the comic itself. Using the script provided by the writer, I was able to first come up with a general idea for the vision of the issue, and I would translate this into the initial draft. This would give me the basic idea for the length of the issue, how they would be structured, and what subjects and dialogue would be included in each panel. Next, I would take this draft and create the final line art digitally, after which I could begin coloring. Then I would put it in the panel borders and finally do the lettering. After touching up each image and going through edits with the group, I would send the completed issue to the group for posting. As the writer, I took a strong role in our initial discussion of our webcomic, suggesting characters and plot lines that I thought were valuable options. I also thought ahead in making sure any choices we made were actually writable, that they would make sense within the story, that they supported character development, and that they moved the plot along reasonably. After the creation portion, my responsibility shifted to producing scripts for each issue. I outlined the basic plot elements of each issue first as a game plan, and then went back to write dialogue lines, action statements, and setting descriptions for each individual issue. Often, these details were changed before final publication to support the artist's vision and suggest what made sense in graphic format. As the web manager, their responsibilities included creating the Instagram account, uploading the comics, creating the caption and hashtags, promoting the comic, and engaging with followers. So we made our account a business account so we could view the analytics as we went, and the bottom is our hashtags, graphic novel, English 3 to 6, Halloween, comic, webcomic, pumpkins, animated, graphic design, and design. We mostly just wanted to reach people who were also graphic designers or who were also into comics, which we inevitably did with some of our followers who were graphic designers themselves. Our creative working process was very similar to our flowchart that we made at the beginning of this project that outlined the industry process for creating comics. We began with an idea, talking pumpkins, 2 different characters, and the themes of COVID and kindness. Our writer nailed down a story and specific plot lines, attaching one major plot action to each issue before then writing scripts. At this point, a process within the process began, where issues went back and forth between the writing and the art until it became a finalized product that the whole team agreed on. Our web manager then published approved issues bi-weekly on Instagram. Design choices. Design choices. With Instagram being our group's platform of choice, we had to keep this in mind when deciding how to present the comic to viewers. As a result, this influenced much of the design choices for the panels. One of the main reasons our group went with Instagram as our platform was due to Instagram's multi-photo posting feature that allows for up to 10 images to be posted together under one post. With this feature, viewers are able to swipe the images from left to right, which trains the eyes to view the content this way as well. To take advantage of this, the panels were created with a left to right view in mind to allow for the easiest reading experience that flows from one image to the next.
For our publication approach, we, as mentioned before, chose to use Instagram. We posted one issue with multiple images. The main use of using Instagram is that we had a lot of opportunities to interact with fans as well as reaching out to more people using hashtags in the Instagram story. And we would be able to measure who liked it, how many people visited our profile as shown in the images on this slide.
Our intended audience for our comic was anyone affected by COVID. By creating a comic related to such a tragic time in the world while bringing a bit of comical and childlike nature to it, it could bring anyone negatively affected by COVID some peace of mind. In such a dark time of the world, most people think the worst in others, but Penny and Poe reminds readers that there is good in everyone, even if you can't always see it. For our Instagram results, Penny and Poe posted 7 issues in total and resulted in 12 followers. The most liked issue received about 14 likes.
Yay, all right. Good work. Lots of great compliments for Penny and Poe in the Discord chat. So yeah, excellent work. And also I love that message at the end there, that this is about kind of showing people that it's it's okay to be optimistic and to think the best of people even in these darker times. And I'm really loving kind of the thematic coherence of all these projects. A lot of them kind of address that theme around these times. And so this is a pretty cool little time capsule that we'll be able to look back on in the future about these themes. So yeah, excellent work. Really interesting theme emerging. And speaking of that theme, I think the next one is going to take that on even more directly, which is the X-Men. And I believe I believe I have your video here. So I'm going to pull up the X-Men now.
Hello, everybody.
Whoa, don't start yet. I need to adjust the size and some things. Oh, and the live stream thing finally showed up. Interesting. Okay, let's see if I can adjust the size here. And yeah, again, I don't know why they came through at different resolutions, but it does not really matter. I'm going to hide myself here as I make these adjustments. Okay. X-Men, COVID Crushers. Here we go.
So we are the team that wrote the COVID Crushers. My name is Christine, and I was one of the writers for the comic, and I also worked on inking all the pages of the comic.
Hey guys, my name is Piper. I was also a writer for the script. I also did lettering for all of our word bubbles.
Hi everyone, my name's Erin and I did all the coloring for our comic.
Hello, my name is Lewis, and I was the team leader, and I published the comic.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I was the sketch artist.
So first I'm going to tell you a little bit about the plot of the comic. It's told from the perspective of a white blood cell named Craig. He's a soldier for the immune system force, which is basically the immune system of the body, and their job is to protect the host, which is the body. He learns that the ISF is facing a new enemy, the coronavirus, and realizes he can't face this enemy alone. So he calls a superhero team made up of Mask, Monitor, Distance, and Clean, which might sound familiar if you're living on campus. He brings the MMDC and to the ISF, and they fight off the coronavirus together. And then at the end of the battle, when they win, they're ready for any future battles that they may face. So now I'm going to tell you a little about the themes of the comic. One of the themes was change versus tradition. In the story, the ISF has always won battles on their own, but Craig wants to change that. He wants to move into the future and make the most of the resources they have, as well as seek outside help, which causes conflict with the general of the ISF, who wants to fight battles like they always have. Another theme is coming of age. Craig has to learn to follow his own path and do the right thing, even when it isn't popular. He has to take responsibility and become a leader, which is a step that moves him towards adulthood, even when it's challenging. So those are the main things of the comic that we wanted people to kind of draw from the story.
So now I want to go over kind of our creative process while working together. As you can tell, we drew heavy inspiration from superhero comics, as well as the social distancing policies that have been developed on campus and in other places as well. So our next step, once we had figured out kind of what our story was going to be, was to write the script based off of the original outline that we submitted with our proposal. Once we had a script written for each page, it would be sent off to the artist for sketching, inking, and coloring, and then lettering would be completed. Once that was done, it was sent to the group leader for approval and would be published. So this is kind of the nuts and bolts of it, but I kind of wanted to touch on how our team worked together. So it was really important for us to have clear and frequent communication via Discord and text messages. Especially towards the beginning of the process, we shared ideas openly and really worked well together by having that clear and frequent communication I mentioned. We also were careful to be understanding about busy schedules and understanding that we're all students. So this kind of helped us establish an environment in which our creativity flowed easily between one another and kind of helped us create the comic the way that it is. So yeah, we worked really well together as a team, I think.
So I'm going to be talking about the division of labor. We met on Zoom throughout the semester, but that first Zoom meeting we discussed how we were going to divide up jobs for a comic. How we did that was basically if you wanted a specific job, then you could do that specific job. And then we filled all the other jobs that we needed to do around what everyone else wanted. So for example, Elizabeth and I wanted to do art, so we got to do art. And that way we were all happy and it worked very well for our group. So that's kind of how we divided up labor. And then for our jobs, Lewis was our leader. He made sure that everyone was on task and everything was going smoothly. Piper and Christine were our writers, so they wrote content for our webcomic in a timely manner. They clarified content and broke down content for the artists if needed, and Piper also did lettering. Elizabeth, Christine, and I were artists. Elizabeth did the thumbnail sketches and full pencil renders. Christine did all the inking, and I did all the coloring, and Lewis was our web manager. So we posted the webcomic to the website, made it look all nice, made sure everything was there. So that was kind of how we did our jobs.
So I designed the characters to be easily repeatable, expressive, and cartoonish. The MMDC characters had distinct silhouettes from the white blood cells, which made them stand out as newcomers. I made Craig stand out by giving him a hat and eyes, whereas the other white blood cells only had sunglasses. When creating the pages, I used a standard 9 grid because we were publishing on the website, so I could pack more info onto each page per panel. Because I used a standard grid, whenever I broke the 9-panel layout or used a different shape of a panel, I could emphasize action or expression. I also overlapped speech bubbles to tie together different panels.
My job for the webcomic group was to publicize the comic. What I did was check over the comic and made sure everyone was on the same page before I published it. Professor Zach created an admin account on WordPress where I went on and uploaded the comic to WordPress. I uploaded the image onto the featured image, created the title for the comic page, made sure I assigned the comic page to the correct comic. I previewed it and then published it. It's an amazing comic. Please read it. And our intended audience for this comic were kids and to help teach them how to take care of their bodies during this crisis and any other future crisis. Reading this comic, they understood the basics of what the body does when viruses or diseases invade their bodies. It teaches them to do the most important thing during this crisis, which is take care of your body, wear a mask, put on hand sanitizer, check your temperature, and social distance. I hope you all enjoyed our presentation and remember to social distance and wear a mask.
Yay. All right, excellent. Thanks a lot, COVID questions. All right, so we have one more presentation, and I'm going to actually need to run this one a little differently. Just it worked. I found it worked a little better if I click through the pieces of it, so it will actually play. I tried to autoplay it, and the timing was off. So because you did it right. It's just the way that Google does. There's a little bit of a lag. So I'm going to try to hit play on this one and let us watch this final one. This is the root of all evil. And let me see. I should probably hide myself. I will hide myself. There we go. And then I'm just going to hit play on this, and this will be our last presentation for today. Wednesday, of course, will be the normal. Wednesday and Friday will be the normal procedure. Just keep reading through My Favorite Thing is Monsters. And let's hear from, now finally, the Defenders telling us about Root of All Evil. And I hope this works.
Our brainstorming process started with Cassie saying that...
Hello, we are the Defenders, also known as Cassie, Devin, AJ, and Sarah. We have been the group to write, draw, letter, shade, and publish Root of All Evil. Have you ever thought about what your plants do when you're not home? Well, our comic explores what would happen if your plants could come to life.
Our brainstorming...
Hello, we are the Defenders, also known as Cassie, Devin, AJ, and Sarah. We have been the group to write, draw, letter, shade, and publish Root of All Evil. Have you ever thought about what your plants do when you're not home? Well, our comic explores what would happen if your plants could come to life, and what happens when they don't turn out to be very nice. We had a lot of fun getting to make these dark ideas of ours come to life and are excited to have a platform like Mary Wash Comics for our characters to live on. We look forward in the following slides to tell you about the creative process, our group dynamics, our programs, and different processes we use to bring our plants to life, literally.
Our brainstorming process started with Cassie saying that we should do something with plants after looking at houseplants and us just running with the idea. From there, it turned into said plants coming alive and committing crimes when their owners weren't looking, i.e. Toy Story, but with plants, and then them murdering their owners. That developed the son being the only one aware of what was happening, trying to warn his mom through the entire story, and her not believing him. We then decided to do a backwards how did we get here storyline, starting at the murder scene and working back to the origin of the plants, the reasoning behind their motives, and how the family acquired them. And of course, we had to sprinkle in some plant puns along the way.
We did not do a lot of concept art because our characters were simple. We stuck with stick figure characters for the son and the mom to make the art easy to manage. I did sketch out some possibilities for the plants early on. The goal was to include a handful of recurring plants that would be recognizable from chapter to chapter, that were easy to draw both large and small, and that I could make expressive, which meant plants with big, wide petals and leaves to make the faces easy to draw. When I was working on the art for the first comic, I really narrowed down how I wanted the plants to look, and while how I drew them might have changed a little, I think overall it was close enough that there was not an issue.
I'm Cassie, and I was the writer for the comic. After our group brainstormed and found the ideas and directions we wanted the story to go in, I got to writing. The inspiration for writing the comic backwards was the musical Merrily We Roll Along. The point of this writing style was to see a drastic change by the end, because you get to imagine what would happen if the tipping point for Palmer's revenge, which turns out to be the theme of the entire story, had never been reached. The reversed plot adds wonder and suspense throughout the chapters because you want to find out what happened to cause the events that you presently are reading. This opposes a traditional story where the reader can see the plot unfolding in front of them and has to try to predict the ending.
It only took 1 or 2 meetings for us to decide on our characters, theme, and plot, and because our story was backwards, we had a strong beginning and ending already decided. Thus, instead of writing out each chapter every week, we wrote out the chapters from the first or second meeting, including the images, dialogue, and chapter titles, so that all we had to work on for each issue was the drawings, adding detail and text, and publishing. We published Wednesdays and Fridays, which meant I started drawing each chapter either on Monday or Wednesday, and we would have everything finished within the next 48 hours according to our schedule.
For our division of labor, we wanted to ensure that no one was stuck doing everything. So after much discussion about our backgrounds with comic making and web art, it ended up on paper as Sarah being the artist, Cassie being writer, AJ being web manager, and me, Devin, being team leader. We ended up forming a sort of assembly line where Sarah would work on the art and then email it to Cassie, who would add text and then send it to me, who would shade and color as need be, and then I would send it to AJ, who would put it on a template and then publish it, which proved to be a pretty successful dynamic as we would communicate any problems and solve them together as we faced them along the way.
To create our comic, we used 5 programs. In order of operation, first, we used Paint to draw the comic. Then, fonts were acquired on 1001fonts.com and then added into the comic using the free program GIMP. Shading was then accomplished using Pixlr X, and then the comics were emailed to me and I put them together in Microsoft PowerPoint. The comics were then uploaded using WordPress on the Mary Washer Comics website. We published our comic on the Mary Washer Comics website. We did this because it's easy to access. It's a hub for all the comics, both past and future, and the whole class, our primary audience, had a link to the website. It's also easier to access than Instagram, our other way of publishing things, as we had that for our previous assignment, because that requires an account sometimes to view, and you cannot upload it from the browser version, and compression isn't always great. Finally, the website was easier to format the comic on, because we noticed that there were some technical hiccups, but they were easy to fix by just changing how we formatted the comic, making it more vertical.
When initially designing the comic, the website was only minorly taken into account. We knew we needed the fonts and drawings to be large enough for the viewers to read on screen, but that was about it. In our first 2 comics, we assumed that our individual design intentions would be conveyed when they were put together online. This ended up being an issue because of the font sizes and line weights not coming across on the website's formatting. As we mentioned in the previous slide, the issue had to start experimenting with vertical design layouts. With them put together vertically, the panels came out much larger. This made the fonts much easier to read and allowed for the drawing and shading details to be better appreciated instead of just being lost in the background.
Oh, that's the last slide. We hit the applause. There we go. All right. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Great work. I think that's the last slide. But yeah, it's really interesting, especially to hear about the adaptation and how you have to change things on the fly sometimes to make it work better based on the constraints of the platform. So yeah, good work, everyone. Thanks for letting me show your presentations like that. I believe that was all of them. And we're out of time anyway, so this is about time to wrap things up. But yeah, it was really cool to see these come together. And I really like actually having these presentations as pre-recorded videos or kind of just there so that you know, they'll be easier to look at later and show off later if you want to. But great work on the webcomics. Great work on the you know, the presentations, putting it all together. I think overall I'm very impressed with everything. So thank you for doing this. And you know, I was a little concerned about just how group projects might be manageable given all the constraints of things right now. But it seemed like you all pulled it off really nicely. So I'm glad to see that. All right, so we'll be wrapping it up shortly. Just a couple reminders. So keep reading. My favorite thing is monsters. There's a thumbnail on the schedule page to show you which page to read to. So it's about 3/4 of the way through. Make sure you've read that. The next section, if you're reading along, so the part that we read up to by Friday, that included the introduction of Anka's story, which is pretty intense. It deals with her childhood, where she's a child prostitute, sex slave essentially, and that's pretty harrowing and intense and disturbing. It does continue to be kind of disturbing as we focus on her story, as she is caught up in kind of the Holocaust. So it gets pretty intense going forward, but not as graphic or disturbing, hopefully, as Nat Turner. Ultimately, the main thing to keep reading for and looking for in that book is just, there's so many mysteries. So see if you can find some clues that could help us solve some of these, because we don't have the second book yet. We have to try to do what we can with the clues we have in this book. So I think it's a really interesting challenge. So make sure you read for that. Other just sort of administrative announcement, as you hopefully know, registration is ongoing right now. So class registration for the spring is ongoing. If you're looking for some classes, I'm teaching a couple that you might be interested in. DGSD 395, Applied Digital Studies. That's required for any of you who are CDS majors, but I will be teaching it in the spring. If you haven't had that yet, you're welcome to take it from me. That would be great. I'm also teaching English 350, Electronic Literature. If you are curious about that about that class, you might want to visit a website, www.shouldisignup.com. Check that out and see. There's actually some information. If you scroll down, you can actually learn about the class. But check that out if you're interested. I'm also teaching a winter class, Games and Culture. It's a introduction to video game studies. It's a 3-week class, but we're going to try to cover the same amount of material, or as close as we can, to what we would normally cover in a 15-week class. So it'll be kind of crammed in. I'm thinking that the first week will be like video game history, the second week will be like video game theory, and then the third week will be video game design, something like that. It'll be 4 days a week of pretty intensive work each of those 4 days. So I'm looking forward to the challenge of putting it together. I understand it will be pretty challenging. I imagine it will be pretty challenging for students who choose to take it. But if you're interested, certainly check it out. It's fully online, obviously. It's a digital intensive class if you need that. It's also an honors class if you need that. So, check that out. And, let me know if you have any questions. That registration is open today for everyone, actually. Winter classes are open for everyone starting today, but then throughout the week, it's staggered based on your class. So seniors are registering today, juniors tomorrow, sophomores, and so on. All right. So yeah, hope that goes well. Registration goes well for you all. If you have any questions or issues, I am many of your advisors, I advise many of you. So if you do run into issues, or if you haven't met with me yet, I think I've met with all of my advisees. But if I can help with anything, just let me know. All right, cool. Look forward to seeing some of you in person on Wednesday to talk some more about my favorite thing is monsters. And otherwise, great job on the presentations. Thanks for watching and for chatting in Discord today. And see you later.